On this call, I thought it would be a good idea to introduce everyone to Coach Sam. He's a senior coach here at DUCHY. He's been with us for a long time. And if you can take us through a few case studies, some of your clients that have done particularly well, or perhaps some that haven't done so well, it would just be interesting to unearth some of the details in their training and hopefully give people something concrete and actionable to take away from this that's going to help them in their own performance. Take it away if you wouldn't mind doing an introduction.
Okay, thanks, Will. Hi, guys. My name is Sam Williams. I'm a former professional cyclist and senior coach here at DUCHY. I was a professional cyclist for 6 years, and then I went into coaching, and I've been doing that ever since. Worked with many athletes, from professional athletes to juniors to recreational cyclists and weekend warriors. And it's been great working with DUCHY and working with clients from all over the world. Someone that really stands out for me is a lady I coach called Emily. We've been working together for a year now, and she's recently hit a new 20-minute FTP power PB, which was fantastic. I knew she'd been working so hard for that. Her dedication and commitment to the training has been faultless throughout a tough winter in the UK. I'm sure a lot of people can sympathize with that. It's been a lot of hours on the turbo, balancing with a full-time job, kids, family, all of that, just to stick to the plan, get up first thing in the morning and do the training. It was a really good thing to see. It puts a big smile on your face as a coach, because you know as well that you're doing the right thing, and you can see how much confidence it gives to the athlete.
She was coached for a long time before she joined DUCHY. What do you think has made the difference in what you are doing versus what has been done before?
When Emily came on board, we analyzed the training that she'd been doing, and there was way too much intensity. There didn't seem to be any clear direction. They were going in set phases with planned recovery blocks and everything like that. It was just full gas, maximal efforts. There's periods of time when you need to be doing efforts like that, but not repeatedly every single week for months. You're going to get burnt out physically and also mentally. So what was very clear to me was that the training needed to be more specific. There needed to be a lot more specificity, and we just needed to dial back the intensity a little bit, encourage adaptations by making sure she was resting sufficiently, and applying pressure where it was needed, but also understanding that a lot of your aerobic capacity is built from sub-threshold work. And this, the year of working together, we've kind of stripped it all back, started from the beginning, and we're really seeing the benefits from that now.
Yeah, I think she was another one of those cases which requires a bit of almost a psychic change, where you have to convince these people that you are going to go faster by doing less. Maybe not necessarily less in terms of hours, but less intensity. By not going so hard, it is going to make you faster. And I think lots of people, especially the world we live in today, a lot of our clients are high achievers in their careers, lawyers, doctors, finance, whatever it is. They have excelled in their careers by working as hard as they can, and that has equaled results. And to try and convince them that that's not always the way in cycling, in endurance sport. Yes, there are certain sessions where giving it everything is absolutely what we want you to do. But the big picture, stringing it all together, it takes a lot of feathering. It takes a lot of self-control. It's bravery, because these people feel like they want to keep going. It's always an anxiety in them. They want to do more. It's having the bravery to do less. It's having the bravery to rest when your mind and body are telling you want to keep going. And once people understand that it's hard in very specific sections or specific phases or specific days, and then you have to focus just as rigorously on the easier phases and be just as dedicated to the rest, then they start to really see the product of their hard work. The other side of that equation is too much training, too much stress from life, work, kids, and training. Then they're chronically tired, whether they realize it or not, and they never fully see the product of their hard work because it's just buried below, I call it fatigue blanket, tiredness. And fatigue is more powerful than fitness. We always tell these people, you're doing your back-to-back 600, 700 TSS weeks or whatever that is kind of too big in the context of your life, and you think you're accruing fitness, your CTL is ticking up, but actually you're getting smashed by people who are doing half the amount of training because they're not tired. They're fresh. They can actually access their form, whereas you can't.
I think my job as a coach a lot of the time is holding athletes back a little bit, just doing my best to remind athletes of where we're going in the long term. I totally get it. You want that endorphin hit, and it's an element of that where you've got to remind yourself as a coach that a lot of athletes are doing this for fun. And you've got to keep that element of fun there, but also work on fundamentals. It can't be just a hard session all the time, or else you're going to plateau pretty quickly, and there's not going to be any ceiling to keep pushing up. But at the same time, that takes a lot of trust in athletes. You've got to trust your coach and trust the process, and that they know what they're doing. You've got to build your relationship as a coach with an athlete so they do feel like they can trust you. When I say, actually, it'd be better if we just knock back the intensity here because we've got an event coming up, or actually you're still feeling we still haven't got back to 100% after illness. I'd like to give an extra rest day here. Whereas you might be feeling like, no, I want to smash it. But from my experience of being a professional athlete and working with many clients over the years, just forcing a little bit of rest in the long term has such a big impact.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that's all part of successful performance, really. And I think what we tend to see as coaches is the relationship is self-propelling. Like they might have never spoken to, heard of Sam Williams before the day that they start, or you do their data review and you start working with them, and you are asking them to almost change habits of a lifetime. And in that first month or 2 months, then we see some resistance sometimes. But the majority buy into what we're trying to tell them. They take the rest, see the results, and then that builds trust. It almost builds momentum in this new way of training. It's always in that first couple of months where it's teetering on the edge, like, will they, won't they? But thankfully, most people tend to buy into what we do. And that trust process then just becomes like a huge performance enhancer because they are then willing to make different decisions compared to what they had been doing. And usually when people come to us, what they had been doing is not working or has not been working. But it's amazing how many people come to us saying, I haven't really improved in the last 3, 4, 5 years. Everything's been stagnant. And then we start working with them, yet they want to keep doing the same things they have been doing. You have to say, look, if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always got. If you want something different, you have to feed them a different training stimulus. But that does take that element of trust with a lot of people. I think a lot of it comes from anxiety, especially the unwillingness to rest. People are not very good at just sitting with themselves, sitting with their feelings, sitting with that restlessness. You really want to get out and do more and move. But anxiety breeds overtraining. Like overtraining is the source from which anxiety feeds. The big job of ours to try and disassociate those two from being in relation with one another.
I can totally empathize with the case of overtraining. I think everyone would say, at some point in their careers, they've overtrained, especially when I was younger. I've made all the mistakes, so I try and help these athletes not make the same mistakes I made. Now understanding the science and being updated with all the latest research, we can prove that this is the right way forward. Okay, in the next 2 weeks, you might not feel like you're gaining much fitness, but in the long term, as you step through the phases and you're pushing out and increasing your depth, you're going to see such a big improvement. And it can be tough, and that's where you've got to be strong-minded and have a good dedication to actually hold yourself back sometimes. It can be difficult to do.
For sure. And before we got on the call, we were discussing the concept of accountability, and AI or computer-generated training apps are establishing themselves in the market, but it's not something we are particularly worried about. One, for the quality of training that these things will produce, the specificity, the personalization, but probably more powerfully, like you said, is the total lack of accountability and how powerful it is to have a human relationship, how powerful that is for performance.
Yeah, totally. So throughout the years, I've noticed pretty clearly that guys and girls that come and work with me, they're here for that element of accountability. They've followed these generic plans, maybe these AI built models for X amount of time. And it's always the same conclusion where they struggle to get the work done. I feel just that human element of when you do build a really good relationship between the athlete and the coach, just knowing that a real human being is going to be checking in with you the next day and seeing if you've got the session done, that you will squeeze out that extra last 2 minutes and you will hit that power target. And you will, whether it's 6 a.m. or after a busy day of work, you will hop on the bike instead of taking the easy way out and just sitting on the couch. So I think a lot of my athletes are here because they like having me there where they can text and we can have a call and we can talk about not just cycling, how stress off the bike as well, because that all has an impact on your performance. And also just knowing that I'm going to be on Training Peaks and looking at your file, I don't think that can ever be replaced.
100%. And I think the relational side of things, just to talk through situations, in a season of training, we all encounter these situations where we become very drained, whether psychologically, physically, or both, and you're not sure which way to go at the junction. Do the session? Do I rest or do I adjust the session? Yeah. And even with coaching qualifications and years of experience coaching and racing a bike, when I was trying to self-coach, I rarely made the right decision in those circumstances. Someone once said to me, you can't fix something with a broken tool. Basically, if you are the one who is exhausted, you do not want to be the one making the decision about whether you should train or not train. Because when we are exhausted, we become irrational. We make poor decisions. So I think that is the useful thing, having us as coaches in a much more objective position to shine a bit of a light of reason at times into a situation where we can go like, Julian, from our vantage point, you are exhausted. You might not really feel that right now because you're so involved in it. Like you're so
where you, it's a sense of denying it as well, because you want to carry on training and you think, oh yeah, no, it's fine. This is normal, but actually I think there's so much benefit of just having a second opinion. If I was still racing a bike, I would 100% get a coach. With everything that I know, I still would get a coach just to have that second opinion, because you're right. When you're deep into it, I think the winter, everything's a little bit more controlled. But then when you get into the season where you've got events coming up, you're feeling tired, your CTL's telling you this, but you're feeling this and everything like that. I think it's good just to have someone looking at it from a subjective standpoint and giving you their opinion as well, and reminding you of where you're going in the next few weeks. Because we're all human beings, being athletes. We do have that psyche where we do enjoy to suffer. We do like pushing ourselves. So then actually telling yourself to rest, it can feel counterproductive a lot of the times. But having someone say, actually, no, let's rest here because we're going here in a few weeks. And this is why we're doing it. Remember, we've talked about this. This is why we're going there. I think it's so valuable to have that.
100%. And I mentioned Julian, thinking through your list of clients. He might be quite an interesting one to talk about, in that he lives in New York City, obviously one of the busiest cities in the world, huge cycling scene, and we work with lots of guys in New York. What are the nuances? What are the interesting things about coaching someone who lives in such a big city, a city which is in the winter often freezing, full of snow? What do you have to do differently with those guys?
It's an interesting one. You've got to be quite savvy with the training. With Julian, I always give him that option. It's not so much the case now during the winter, because they're under snow and there's no way of getting out. To get a good ride in, he's got to go to Central Park and do good laps around there. Or if he wants to, if he does have a window for going for a longer ride, I always give him that option, because we're in touch daily. If work frees up or on the weekend he can get out, give him 2 sessions, or say there's the option to do this indoors. But if you want to go out and do a longer ride, go for it. I'd always much prefer guys and girls to be going out and enjoying riding their bike, rather than telling them that they have to do this session indoors. We're doing this because we love the sport and we want to ride our bikes. So with Julian, I always give him that option. If you want to get out and the weather's good and you have availability in your diary, go out. And with Julian as well, we've worked quite a lot in the gym and seen a really good response from that. And I think it's often overlooked with athletes, strength and conditioning work in the gym. And now the evidence is overwhelming in support of, you should be training in the gym. You should be lifting all through the year, not just in the off season, in the season as well. It's so beneficial from a muscular fiber recruitment standpoint, working on your muscular imbalances, injury prevention, and just raw power in the sprints and everything. Julian's going out on these hard group rides, and we really needed to help him with packing a good punch on those steep, short climbs. And the gym works really helped him with that.
So he's feeling better on these group rides. How's he progressing in general?
Yeah, I've been working with Julian for just around a year now. This was a goal to get stronger on these group rides. Towards the end of last year, September, October, he was crushing it. He was not just surviving anymore. He was up there with these really strong guys that do some big hours. That was a nice highlight to finish on. Then we took an off-season break and we're building back up now. And obviously it's fully indoors at the moment, but depending on the weather, volume is going to be key, and getting those longer rides in where we can is really going to help him build on all of the work we've done last year.
And I think that's a more exciting goal in some ways. I mean, we have our relatively small cohort of young pros or aspiring pros. They have targets of winning various big UCI races against some of the best riders in the world. And that's amazing, of course. And it's a privilege to be part of their journeys. But I always find on a personal level, there is something incredibly rewarding when someone comes to us and they're like, hey, look, my mates are just kicking my head in at the local group ride. Or, I've joined this group ride and feel a bit embarrassed and being dropped on every climb over the weeks and months, sometimes years. There's like, okay, no, I'm feeling a bit more comfortable in that group ride. Then there's like, oh yeah, I was in that group ride and I drifted to the front and I felt quite good. And then there's like, I'm riding with the strongest guys in the group ride. Then it's like, I'm dropping the strongest guys in the group ride. Seeing that progression, because there's so much interpersonal stuff that goes on as well, like the relationships with the friends who see him moving through the pack, and the confidence that it gives these guys, often these 40, 50-year-old guys who come cycling relatively late. I don't know, maybe as a late starter to cycling myself, there's something I find more rewarding about helping someone smash everyone at the group ride versus win a UCI race.
There's so many more elements to it as well, to really bring someone on who's got a full-time job, they've got a family, they've got so many other commitments. You've really got to get specific with the training and get savvy with what you do. With my pro guys, they get up and all they have to think about is cycling. I can just give them the training that works and I'll know they do it, Whereas, and rightly so, there's guys who are CEOs, they've got a busy work life and they want a little bit of interest in their training. They want things to be nicer to follow than just 3 times 20-minute, sweet spot or whatever. So then you've got to get a little bit more. Yeah, you've got to just adjust the training slightly to make it fun, interesting, and still balance all of the stresses off the bike as well. Once they finally get there, when they're smashing a goal, whatever that is, if it is to be more competitive in the group rides, when you get there, after all of these obstacles, that feels great as a coach as well.
Mm, for sure. Sam, I think we can wrap up. Is there any
Yeah.
parting words of wisdom that you might have for us?
Having a goal is so important, because otherwise you can get a little bit lost with the training. It's quite hard to keep that specificity and apply that progressive principle all the time. It's to increase your FTP, increase your critical power, or an actual goal like an event. I think it's always important to have those in the calendar, and it gives you that sense of direction.